The last two things I'll go over is the project browser and then the client information filling out. So under the project browser, you're going to see all the different views we have for our floor plans that we're going to be doing here. And again, considering that this stream is not a universal fix all, under the project browser, you're going to see all the different views we have for our floor plans that we're going to be doing here, and a lot of common ground that I've had with clients. Also, to be clear, I will never release standards and practices of how I do things with other clients. So although I'm going to try and provide as universal of answers as I can, not only as a teacher, but I will try and talk about standards as a professional that I've often encountered enough to where it would not be taken as a trade secret with people. But I'm just going to say, just looking at the project browser here, the levels, of course, need to stay basement, first floor, foundation. These, whether or not they're going to be an actual level that needs to be a view that's placed on a sheet, they should exist because you're going to very likely reference them one way or another. Your foundation may not, or more specifically, your like bottom of footing isn't necessarily going to be a level that you're going to be opening and looking at and putting on sheets and such, unless you're an engineer. But it's good to have as a level because you're going to use it to reference to other things, even as a view sometimes, even because you can have items in an elevation just be a reference plane without them being a view as well, which we'll go over in the future for half walls and such. But even considering that, there's a couple views in here typically by default that you're not going to need, and it can be a little intimidating, especially at first getting back into Revit, having to navigate the project browsers and such, seeing all these views clutter things up. So when I was first using when using the Revit templates that came before making my own, another first thing that I ended up doing in here is coming in here and definitely deleting the framing plans, because I do not do framing plans in Revit, nor have I encountered anyone where I've had to collaborate on them caring about framing plans in Revit. Even if you want to know framing construction for new and demo construction and such in Revit, I still do those things and have still never needed to do a framing plan. So I get rid of those. And then the electrical plans, reflected ceiling plans, aka electrical ceiling plans as a ceiling plan. Electrical plans, on a designer standpoint, it can be considered a floor plan because there's times where people need to know where the outlets and switches and such are in a more kitchen and bath sense. All the time that I've ever had to express in a client where electrical systems are, I've always had to do it in the ceiling plan because it just made more sense to have the lights and the electrical systems and then an underlay of the floor plan all just kind of be in the ceiling plan system. So I'm also going to delete these electrical plans. And I guess I'll leave the site plan in just in case that comes later, but that's going to be often something I'm going to remove too. As a designer, I'm not often doing site plans. And if I'm collaborating with site plans, it's usually in AutoCAD or some third-party software where I'm not necessarily always making the view in Revit. But I am not saying that it never happens, because it definitely does happen. So we can already see right now, just looking at our floor plans and ceiling plans, we have significantly brought down the amount of things that we have to filter through. Also, if your project doesn't have a basement or it doesn't have a second floor, you're going to see even more of these are going to disappear, and then you're going to have an easier time filtering through here. Now, the last thing I'm going to go over is inputting your client information, because that is, again, another one of the very, not just first day, but like first hour in the new Revit project file, things that you're going to be wanting to do. So some of those items are going to be available in the sheets. We're eventually going to go over sheets, and you're going to see that a lot of that project information can be accessed through the sheet and be updated in the sheet. So if we knew that our owner is Mr. Smith, And that's all we put in here for now. We're going to see that in other sheets. Regardless of whether we're looking at the first floor plan or an exterior elevation plan, this project is Mr. Smith's project. So Revit is smart enough to know that a client, is going to be consistent across its sheets. But what I'm talking about is under the Manage tab, there's project informations, a couple other project information, project parameter type things that we'll go over that is relevant to the Revit project. Under project information, we're going to get different things that are going to populate throughout different parts of Revit. This can work under some of the analytics when you're working Revit against the location and geographical surfaces. Majority of this information, like you'll see here, is going to be the information that's going to be populated to your sheets. Not all of this information will appear in all of your sheets. If you're working on a real project that you're going to be working on for a while, it's really worth it to just pop over here, maybe right after setting your level lines, or maybe even right after saving the file. You just come here, fill out as much of this information as you can, and throw it in here, and then later on, you're going to have a lot less work with filling out some of the sheet information. One thing you will notice is this is project information, and some of the informations on the sheets are relevant to that actual sheet. So there will still be some things, even after filling out all of this, there will still be some sheet specific items that you're going to have to fill out. Once I've put in enough of this information, you're going to see that it will populate over here, and also by default with the default time or the sheets that come with Revit, they have a timestamp. Well, because I don't want to pigeonhole this project down to being too specific of a project that is not meeting the needs of everybody, I'm going to go ahead and leave this here, see what comments and responses I get on this, see if there's any suggestions, and then I'm going to be setting up my next play. So I may eventually get in a habit of a weekly release of this, but because I'm going to be having lots of plans coming up, it may end up becoming bi-weekly for now. So if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I will make sure to give more heads up, especially than I did today, on future streams. But because I knew a lot of people were going to be busy, I just wanted to get this one out for people to catch at their leisure for the recordings, and then I'm going to begin working with people to see, for those that do want to see me in live stream and want to give me live feedback while I'm drawing this, and while you all tell me what we are creating, and while you tell me what tools I need to use and how to explain them while I'm using them, that's what's going to be driving the next steps. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that now. Thank you all for joining. And please reach out on chat or Twitter or Instagram if you have any suggestions on where you would like to see this going in the future. Thank you so much.